Today we got a biology teacher who's accused of doing inappropriate behavior with a student at a local park. Let's take a look.
Arrested for an alleged sexual relationship with a student. It's just one of many cases we've covered in recent weeks, highlighting a disturbing pattern emerging across the nation. This time, we're headed to Charlotte, North Carolina, where 26-year-old biology teacher Gabriella Neufeld is accused of having sex with an 18-year-old student. These accusations all came to light on Wednesday. According to court docs, Neufeld engaged in intercourse or a sexual act at least 5 times since October 18th. While the interactions didn't happen at school, they allegedly happened with an 18-year-old male student. After an interview with police, Neufeld was arrested and booked into the Mecklenburg County Detention Center.
As an adult, you have other adults that you can associate with, socialize, go out with, get a relationship with. There's no reason why you should target or have any type of relationship with anyone that you are working with.
She was later released on $75,000 bond. Heard extensively at Law and Crime Network, as handfuls of similar cases have made the headlines since the start of the school year. But experts like forensic psychologist Dr. John Delatorre say this shocking pattern has existed for years.
In the 90s, 80s, and 70s, early on, all of these things were happening. These things have been happening since there was a teacher and there was a student, right? So from the beginning of time, abuses like this have been occurring. But the technology wasn't there to engage in these kinds of things. And so current, like in contemporary times, have
So with that being said, do y'all think school systems need to put in force some type of something to where they can screen if a if an adult is predatory in some way, because we're gonna have to put a stop to this, because it just seems like the cases, more and more cases, is being reported more and more. Like you said, the technology has improved, so definitely easier to catch a situation like this, but we definitely got to put something in place so this can stop happening.
having an online relationship and having an offline relationship are almost the same thing. And so you can engage in these kinds of sex acts, sexual texts, videos, images being sent to one another.
He says the inappropriate relationships start normally with a student teacher dynamic. It's a gradual shift into something much darker.
It is a pretty big jump, and it's a jump that actually happens over time, right? It's not one single jump. It's one little tiny little hop from one step to the next. Now, remember, some individuals actually do get sexual gratification from engaging in this behavior. So part of the thought process is also coupled with a physical gratification that the person is receiving from engaging in this behavior. It's also psychological in that they're getting attention from the victim. So there's a lot of dynamics that are at play when it comes to convincing the person that what they are doing is the right thing. They always know that it's wrong. They've always known and they always will know that the behavior is wrong. They just don't care anymore.
This nature that we've seen much of in recent months. We've covered the story of Peyton Shires, the 24-year-old social worker now accused of having sex with a boy she'd been assigned to counsel. Authorities in Ohio say Shires recorded videos of herself having sex with a boy. Investigators found that evidence on the boy's phone, and Shires admitted to the relationship while she was on the phone with his mom. At the same time, police were listening.
Very unacceptable. I mean, whew. What in your right mind think that is acceptable? Plenty of people out here in the world that's your age. You should not engage in anything with your students. You should not engage in anything with your students. You shouldn't engage with anything with anybody working there. That is absolutely unacceptable.
In. She's now charged with unlawful sexual contact with a minor. In the case of Ricky Lynn Laughlin, it's attempted rape that put the one-time Missouri teacher in the headlines. Investigators say she invited a 16-year-old student to have sex with her while her husband was out of the home. In Pennsylvania, school counselor Kelly Ann Shute was accused of preying on a 14-year-old boy in his bedroom after his parents left the house. Investigators say the pair had inappropriate relations several times, including in her SUV and her home. California teacher Michelle Solis is accused of having a sexual relationship with a former student and sending explicit photos. 27-year-old Emily Swinkowski resigned from her teaching job in Missouri after explicit photos she took made the rounds between students. She's also accused of sexual assault. As is Cassidy Krause of Iowa, who allegedly sent explicit photos and had sexual relations with 3 boys ages 13 and 14. Then there's the case of Alyssa, a Tennessee teacher who's allegedly pregnant with her former student's child. Just this week, McCommon's bond was revoked following her second arrest. She faces charges of rape, coercion of a witness, aggravated stalking, and harassment. She was arrested in early September for allegedly raping a boy in her own home. She was released on bond, but arrested again when she allegedly reached out to the victim after her release, saying she was pregnant with his
Wow.
child. At a hearing this week, a judge ruled she reached out to the victim after her release, saying she was pregnant with his child. The disturbing nature of these cases that continues to generate interest, so we're taking a closer look now at the most recent one, Gabriella Neufeld. So to make sense of the case so far, we're joined now by long crime legal analyst Julie Rendelman. Julie, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so what struck me about this case, and is what separates it from so many of the others like it, is that the student in this one is 18 years old, so a legal adult. But Neufeld was still arrested and charged. Can you explain that?
Sure. So what we've typically been seeing is where a teacher engages in some type of sexual activity with a student that's also underage. This is unique because the student is 18 years old, and so he is of age. However, the law is quite clear in North Carolina. And in this case, the crime is called sexual activity with a student. And what that says is that an individual who is a teacher who is over 4 years, who is 4 years older than their student, which in this case, the victim was 18, and the teacher was, I believe, 26 years of age. The law prohibits any type of sexual activity between the two.
She now faces 5 counts of felony sexual activity with a student by a teacher, that charge that you just explained. But is that different than rape? Is it less severe?
It is less severe. It's still a felony. They classify it.
Now, listen, she gonna have to face. She gonna have to face the charges. Don't. So far, they haven't said anything about her mental state. So, and she's a teacher, so her mental state's probably good. So she knows she was in the wrong. She knows she was wrong for doing it, and that state has laws, like she mentioned earlier. 4 years and above the age of a student, you're wrong. So let's take a listen.
In that state as a G felony. The difference is the amount of time an individual can get if, in fact, they're found guilty. In a case such as this, the defendant is potentially looking at up to 47 months, whereas in the typical cases we would see, you would have an expectation that the potential for imprisonment is much higher.
A lot of this case is going to rely on what this 18-year-old student has to say. Would you say that he would need to testify?
You would expect that he will. Now, keep in mind, there might be outcry witnesses, individuals that he told what happened. There might be witnesses. We expect that when an individual is raped, that it's done in a private location, but you never know what the evidence is going to yield. There may be, which we don't know yet, there might be texts, there might be videos, there might be emails that don't require him to necessarily testify. Keep in mind that no matter what his age is, if it's a student and it's a teacher, and there is an age difference between